Even though many may argue that the NASCAR season hasn't even officially started yet, it's still never too early to talk about power rankings. Let's do that today. Welcome to the garage. So sitting in front of me here, I have a list of 10 drivers who I think are the top 10 best drivers in NASCAR heading into Las Vegas this weekend. This list is completely my own, it's my opinion, and it's probably not your opinion. So pull up a chair, grab a drink, grab a snack, grab whatever, and think of as many curse words as you can call me in the comments because I'm probably about to make you upset. So let's jump right into it. Number 10. At number 10, I'm going Daniel Suarez. Am I riding the hype train from his Atlanta win? Probably a little bit. But I gotta say, Daniel Suarez was running really well at Daytona. He just got clipped in the big one. He was on his way to a pretty damn good finish there, if not possibly the win. And of course, nobody's gonna forget that Atlanta photo finish. Listen, were they 2 drafting tracks so far this season? Yes, but they were 2 points races, and drafting tracks are 6 of the 36 races this year. You've got to be good there to win the championship, and that's what Daniel Suarez is. He has ran well at these tracks. So because of that, I'm putting Daniel Suarez in the 10th spot. Let's see if he can stay there. More importantly, let's see if he can move his way up. Number 9. At 9, I'm going to go Christopher Bell. Now, his race ended very shortly in Atlanta, and we can't really use that against him, right? Listen, here's some facts. Christopher Bell won his dual race. I know, it's a dual race. I'm not thinking too much into that. But then he finished 3rd in the Daytona 500. Do I think Christopher Bell would have won Atlanta if he didn't crash? No. Do I think he would have finished top 5? Probably not. But we don't know what would have happened if he didn't crash. 9th. It's already far down enough, I think. Christopher Bell's the top 10 driver. I give him 9th. Obviously, once the season progresses a little more, he's probably going to move up those rankings. Bell runs pretty good at Las Vegas, finished 2nd there in the playoff race last year. I'd like to see a bounce back from Christopher Bell, and I think he could do it for sure. Made the championship for the last 2 years. I think he'll be all right. Number 8. At number 8, I'm going to go Joey Logano. Now, you've got to think, okay, this guy is like 30-something in the points. Why is he on the top 10 list? Because sometimes where you finish is not indicative of how you ran. Logano was contending for the Daytona 500 victory. Got in a crash. Logano got penalized before the race even started in Atlanta. Rallied back from that, of course, got help from an early caution on lap 2, but he still rallied back from the penalty. But then he gets caught up in a crash trying to go for the stage 2 win. Even though we're only 2 races in, I'm sensing a theme here. Logano's crashing, going for a win. So he's running well. You know, I'm not putting him in the top 3 or 5. That would be a little ridiculous considering he hasn't really even finished a race yet this season. But I feel like a guy like Logano, you can't not put in the top 10 after he's been competing the last 2 races. It just wouldn't be right. That's why I think 8th is pretty respectable for Joey Logano, and that's where he will live for now in the 8th spot. Number 7. In the 7th spot, we have Denny Hamlin. Talk about a guy who's been crashing. In 2 races, Denny Hamlin has crashed 4 times. He crashed in each stage last week in Atlanta. Luck has not been on Denny Hamlin's side, so you're probably asking yourself, okay, why is he in the top 10? Well... I think a really underrated moment from the Atlanta race was when Denny Hamlin crashed at the end of stage 2 and then restarted stage 3 right up in the front. Listen, in a NASCAR season, you're going to have to face adversity a lot, and it seems like the 11 team is pretty good at battling that adversity. Of course, it just can't happen 3 times in a race. But what I've seen out of Denny Hamlin, I've liked so far. Denny Hamlin's actually my pick to win the championship this year. I think it's his year. His championship window is closing. There's certainly no secret about that. So Denny Hamlin needs to stay on this top 10 list. He needs to find his way up to 1st, and he needs to bounce back at Las Vegas. And the way that 11 crew's been working this season, I think he'll have no problem doing that. So Denny Hamlin will stay in 7th. Number 6. At number 6, I'm going to go Kyle Larson. I got to say, for being Kyle Larson, he's been somewhat quiet this season so far. I mean, granted, he's not the best at the drafting tracks. He doesn't like them. That's not his forte. But I haven't heard much from Kyle Larson yet. What I do know, though, is he was up front in Atlanta, led some laps, was competing for the win until he got caught up in a crash late in the race. For Kyle Larson, at a drafting track, like I just said, not his favorite. To even be up front competing at the end, I'll give him 6. He is Kyle Larson after all. He's going to find himself in the top 3 on this list eventually. We'll place him in 6th. Now, don't think for a second that the early quietness and the early struggles from Kyle Larson is going to, be his season this year. No. Kyle Larson will make noise. And for now, that's why he's going to sit outside the top 5. It's the calm before the storm. The Kyle Larson storm is coming, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happened this weekend at Las Vegas. So now we enter the top 5. Number 5, I'm going to go Ross Chastain. Another guy that I feel like isn't being talked about a whole lot in these first 2 races. Of course, he got involved in that crash with Austin Cindric to end the Daytona 500 in a very controversial way. But let's say he doesn't crash there. He's probably going to either win the Daytona 500 or finish in 2nd or 3rd. So he would already have a podium finish or a win to start the season. Now we go into Atlanta. Kept it clean for the most part. Had a little controversy trying to get back on the lead lap. We won't talk about that. Brings it home in the top 10. Listen, to do that at 2 drafting tracks, to be in the mix at the end, to even bring it home at the end at 2 drafting tracks, I give him credit for that. We know Ross Chastain is one of those guys. He will get up on the wheel. He will do what it takes to win. He's gonna win this season. Heck, his Trackhouse teammate just won. Of course he's gonna win. So round of applause for Ross Chastain for completing both races, for completing them in a somewhat good manner. Of course, he didn't get the finish he deserved at Daytona, but I'm respecting him for being up there. I think Ross Chastain deserves to be in the 5 spot here, and that's where he will be. Number 4. Woo-hoo-hoo, the controversy is going to start here. Number 4, give me Bubba Wallace. Now, before you start typing, let me explain to you my reasoning for putting Bubba Wallace at number 4. Let me drop some facts on you. In 2 races this season, Daytona and Atlanta, Bubba Wallace has finished 5th in both of them. I don't know, maybe I'm not listening to the right content, to the right podcasts, to the right shows, but no one's talking about that nearly enough. I mean, congratulations to Bubba Wallace for actually even finishing 2 drafting track races, but to finish them in the top 5 to get 5th in both of them. I mean, that is just crazy. That is the epitome of consistency, and it should be applauded. He deserves to be here in number 4. You could say, oh, well, he's only good at drafting tracks. But okay, that's a skill. There's a lot of drivers who aren't good at drafting tracks. We just talked about Kyle Larson, arguably the best driver in the field. Both Kyles, really, 2 drivers named Kyle, probably 2 of the best drivers in the field, both cannot get around these drafting tracks. I mean, man, that's a big deal. Like I said, 6 of the 36 races this season, all on these drafting tracks. Let's not forget Bubba's playoff run last season, too. Gets into the next round on points. Coulda, shoulda, woulda won Texas. Now he starts 2024 with 2 top 5 finishes. Man, Bubba Wallace is going to be a problem this year. Are you done cursing me out? All right, cool. Number 3. At number 3, I'm going to go with the defending series champion, Ryan Blaney. Again, just like most of the drivers below him on this list, he was up there to contend for the Daytona 500. He was working with his teammate, Joey Logano. Looked like they maybe would have had something to say about that race, but they got caught up in the big one. Transition into Atlanta. He is part of that unbelievable 3-wide finish. He was about this close to having a win and probably putting himself in first on this list, but it was a 2nd place finish. Still, Ryan Blaney ran great that race. I do not think there's a championship hangover for that 12 team. I think he's going to be just fine, and he's going to live around this 3rd spot, I think, for the entirety of the season. So before I get into who my top 2 drivers are, I just wanted to mention one name that I haven't said yet, and you're probably asking yourself where this guy is. And that is Chase Elliott. And if you are asking yourself where Chase Elliott is, I'd like to raise the same question. Where is Chase Elliott? To be in the top 10 of the power rankings, you have to race like one of the top 10 best drivers in the field, and guess what? That's not Chase Elliott right now. I will recognize that Chase Elliott won stage 1 at Daytona. He won the first stage of the season. That's great. I'm not going to try to say it was a fluke, but at the same time, it was a bit of a fluke, because when it came down to it at the end, the Hendrick cars were up front, but Chase Elliott was nowhere to be found. In a Hendrick 1-2 finish, Chase Elliott finished 14th. And despite getting into a few wrecks at Atlanta, Chase Elliott finished 15th. Now, Chase Elliott fans, I'm not trying to completely hate on you. Chase Elliott's a great driver. He's a champion of the sport. And the good news for you is the season does start next week. But if Chase Elliott finishes around that 13th, 14th, 15th range at Las Vegas, it's not going to be looking good. And yes, I know it's early, but I do think Hendrick's going to be somewhat dominant at Las Vegas. Chase Elliott should have no problem running in the top 10, maybe even the top 5. If Elliott doesn't get at least, a 7th place finish at Las Vegas, I don't think he's going to crack this top 10 for a couple weeks. So let's see. I have Bubba Wallace in the top 5 in my power rankings. I don't have Chase Elliott in the top 10 in my power rankings. How can I make people even more mad? Well, at number 2, I have Kyle Busch. If you continued to watch the video after I said that, let me tell you why. Well, for starters, Kyle Busch is our points leader going into Las Vegas. Kyle's been nothing but consistent so far to start the season. I'll mention the Clash. What the heck? He got a podium there. 2nd place finish in the Clash. We head into Daytona. I gotta be honest with you, I think the 8 car was the best car in the field. Nobody went from the back to the front to the back to the front to the back to the front to the back to the front like Kyle Busch did. Sure, you can say at Daytona he ended up finishing outside the top 10, but he still came home with a lot of stage points and his car looked great. Heading into Atlanta last week, he was part of that iconic 3-wide finish. He was about this far away from having a win. Unfortunately, being part of a 3-wide finish like that, he was so close to the win, but ended up in 3rd. That still doesn't sway my opinion, though. Kyle Busch has ran great. I just said before, these drafting tracks, not for him. For him to be the points leader coming out of that, something's going right at RCR. We look at Brad Keselowski, we look at Joey Logano. They're inside the bottom 30 in points. They're like 36th and 33rd. To be honest with you, that's the kind of position I thought Kyle Busch would be in 2 races into the season. But he's not. His cars have ran great. He's had a little luck on his side, and he's your points leader, and he's 2nd on my power rankings. And that brings us to number 1. Number 1 is William Byron. Of course, had a little bit of bad luck last week and didn't have the best result in Atlanta, but you can't overlook the Daytona 500 victory. Momentum in sports is a real thing. He came off his best season in NASCAR last year, winning the most races, comes back, wins the Daytona 500, one poor race at Atlanta, a little bad luck, crashed coming to pit road. NASCAR didn't throw that caution, but that's a discussion for another day. You're going to have races like that. Dale Earnhardt had races like that. Richard Petty had races like that. Jimmy Johnson had races like that. Not saying I'm comparing William Byron to those 3 drivers, but I'm not going to put William Byron out of that one spot because of one iffy race. I still think he's the number 1 driver in NASCAR right now. I think William Byron might even be considered an early lock for the Final 4. Will he win the championship this season? I don't know. But William Byron is like the only driver that I can think of that, I think I can safely put him in my Final 4. It is still extremely early, though. NASCAR season is upon us, guys. These are my top 10 right now after 2 drafting tracks, after 2 mayhem-filled races. Of course, that wonderful finish in Atlanta. The season starts this weekend at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. While we're on that topic, Chevys have won the last 2 races, and I don't think that streak is going to end at Las Vegas. My pick to win, I'm going to go Kyle Larson, and Hendrick Motorsports is going to win 2 of the 3 races to start the season. That's my prediction. Leave your predictions down in the comments below. Do you disagree with my power rankings? You probably do. Let me know your power rankings in the comments below or send me a DM on Instagram. If you're not already following me on Instagram, I don't know what you're doing. If you're a NASCAR fan and you don't follow NASCAR Time on Instagram, what are you doing? Come on, man. Go follow that page right now. Link is in the bio down below. If you don't follow me on TikTok either, that link is also down below under the same handle. And if you're new to the channel here, which you probably are because I'm new to YouTube, please like, subscribe, comment. I'm really enjoying making YouTube videos. I think this is a lot of fun. I want to keep doing it. So please help me boost that engagement up. Show your friends, share the videos. All right, that's all I got to say. I'm done babbling for today. Thanks for watching the video and have a great day.